Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. حياكم الله مساءكم الخير. Warm welcome to you all. Jazakum Allah khair. May Allah reward you all for attending tonight's lesson. And apologies for the, slight adjustments that we have to do in the beginning. So today, inshallah ta'ala, our lesson will be Usul al-Sitta. Yeah? Yesterday, with Shamsuddin was Usul al-Sunnah by Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala. Allah have mercy upon him. Today's lesson is Usul al-Sitta, 6 principles. Yeah? Usul al-Sitta. And we shall be running through the Muqaddamah, the introduction, and the very book that we have, Bayna Aydina, between our hands today, is this copy of the book, which is, funny enough, the Dar al-Sunnah version. And inshallah, this is the translation we shall be working with. And it is actually available for free online for those that are wondering. Yeah? Okay. So we're just going to read through, some of the reasons historically why this book was somewhat published. Okay. So by the time Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who died 1206, had embarked upon his journey in rectifying the state of the Muslim Arabs, ignorance had very much prevailed and entrenched Arabia. Most of its inhabitants were misdirected and had returned to the ways of the pre-Islamic Arabia, Jahiliyyah effectively. Mystical leaders and people of deviation ruled over the masses, i.e. over the awam, the general folk. Extreme Sufis erected graves in exaltation, and the tree of At-Tarfiyah, to which women would approach and seek blessings from, was venerated. The grave of Zayd ibn al-Khattab was converted to a place of pilgrimage, and idols were taken as objects of adoration in Al-Kharj. The days of ignorance were no longer a thing of the past, they were present in his time. Blind partisanship to schools of thoughts, ta'assub, divided the Islamic community. At the Holy Mosque of Mecca, the affair had escalated to the point that each prayer would be established in 4 folds. I don't know if anyone's seen that picture. Each group separately praying in a congregation with their own imam. Yeah? So Shafi'iyah, Hanbaliyah, Hanafiyah, all of them had their own separate podiums for prayer. It is due to this historical background that we find the majority of the writings of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who died 1206, don't forget that, are centered around the rebuttal of polytheism. Yeah, Rad ala polytheism, and superstition, khurafat. Yeah? From them is his well-known Kitab al-Tawheed. I'm sure you all know that. Which is undoubtedly considered his magnum opus. Yeah? His most well-known, well-established book. Masail al-Jahiliyyah, Qawaid al-Arba, which we shall do, inshallah, the 4 principles. Kashf al-Shubahat, and here before the reader, Bayna Aydikum, Usul al-Sitta, between your hands, the 6 principles. And before the reader is a translation of these 6 fundamental principles, in which the great reviver, the Mujaddid, identifies the greatest 6 factors that distinguish the saved sect from its counterparts. It would be an exaggeration to describe this essay as a somewhat curriculum for many Sunni Muslims today, despite its 200 years old longevity. The reader will, with little observation, realize that these principles are still very much applicable today. Yeah, we're going to go through them. You're going to see they're somewhat, if not 99.9%, still, rife. Some of the things he's going to mention up until today. And it is as though Ibn Abdul Wahhab is addressing today's Muslim communities. And so here's the second edition of this publication, which has undergone much revision for the benefit of the student of knowledge, talib al-ilm, and the learner of the Arabic language. I'm just going to throw my own note into this as well. It's actually a very good translation, because if you're learning Arabic, you've got the direct English and Arabic translation side by side. So if you're somewhat learning Arabic, you can actually read the translation and see directly how it's, somewhat translated, yeah? For the benefit of the student of knowledge and the learner of Arabic, a parallel translation has been introduced to help with the following as possible. The translation is kept as simple as possible in order to cater for the wider audience. Words have no satisfactory English equivalent, have simply been transliterated with explanations by the translator in the footnote. The speech of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab has been distinguished with smaller, indented font adjacent to the text. Many days and weeks have been sacrificed in the preparation and revision of this publication. And in this regard, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to present this magnificent work to the English world. I would also wish to thank those who contributed their time and effort to this project, especially Abdullah Hilton, Hafidhullah, and Abdurrahman Hugh, Hafidhullah, and Sufyan and Fatima. May Allah preserve them all. And all those who have served this book with their valuable input and help, I ask Allah that He blesses this effort and makes it sincere for His face, and allows us to find it weighing heavy on our scale of good deeds on a day which neither wealth nor children will be of benefit, except who comes to Allah with a clean heart. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Okay, Bismillah. Okay. So now we're going to go into the very, very first part of the text. So he goes on to say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam taslima. So in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the creation. May Allah send salutations of praise, peace and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and all of his family and companions. Qala Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. So by the end of today's lesson, I hope that everybody takes away 3 benefits. Is that too much to ask? 3 benefits, even if you write it down. Yeah? Even if you write it down. Or if you can do by memory, alhamdulillah. But at least 3 benefits. As simple as they may be, it's still a benefit. Because as we know, one of the Salaf has mentioned, قَيُّدُ الْعِلْمِ بِالْكِتَابَةِ. قَيُّدُ الْعِلْمِ بِالْكِتَابَةِ. Engrave knowledge by way of writing. Because by way of engraving knowledge, you embed it into your heart. And inshallah, it doesn't leave. Yeah? So he goes on to say, the noble scholar Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who died 1206. من أعجب العجاب وأكبر الآيات الدالة على قدرة الملك الغلاب 6 أصول بينها الله تعالى بيانا واضحا للعوام فوق ما يظن الظانون ثم بعد هذا غلط فيها كثير من أذكياء العالم والعقلاء بني آدم إلا أقل القليل. So he goes on to say, among the most astonishing of affairs, من أعجب العجاب, among the most astonishing affairs, وأكبر الآيات الدالة, and the greatest of signs that indicate or are indicative to the omnipotence of the ever triumphant King, على قدرة الملك الغلاب, are 6 fundamental principles. Yes. Allah explained them clearly. Allah explained them clearly for the common people. للعوام. Above what the skeptics may think. After this, many of the renowned thinkers and so-called intellectuals from the progeny of Adam erred regarding these principles, except for a minority. إِلَّا أَقَلَّ الْقَلِيلِ. And we're going to break down that muqaddamah a bit later. I'm just going to read a few things before we get started, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. So, in beginning this very great introduction, he goes on to say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So now he's going to go into the explanation of Sheikh Fawzan, hafidhahullah ta'ala. لا شك أن الله سبحانه أنزل القرآن تبيانا لكل شيء. And there's no doubt that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent down the Quran as an explanation for everything, تبيان. وأن الرسول بيّن هذا القرآن بيانا شافيا. And that the Prophet, peace be upon him, clarified in this Quran very clearly and decisively. وأعظم ما بيّنه الله والرسول في هذا القرآن. And the greatest thing Allah and the Messenger explained, made evident in this Quran, قضية التوحيد, the issue of monotheism. قضية التوحيد, monotheism. والشرك, and polytheism. لأن التوحيد هو أصل الإسلام وأصل الدين. That's because Tawheed is a very orientation of Islam, the religion. And that's the foundation, as you all know. And in relation to the Quran bin Tibyan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in his book, ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء. ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. As Allah mentioned, and we have sent down to you this book as an explanation to make clear, i.e. a clarification for all things, and هدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. What does that mean? As a guidance and mercy for the Muslims. وهو الذي تبنى عليه جميع الأعمال. So this is what all righteous deeds are effectively built upon. هو الذي تبنى عليه جميع الأعمال. This is what all righteous deeds are effectively built upon. Tawheed. والشرك يبطل هذا الأصل. So shirk invalidates this very orientation, which is Tawheed. يبطل هذا الأصل. ويفسده, and it corrupts it. ولا يكون له وجود, and it renders it non-existent. لأنهما أمران متضادان ومتناقضان لا يجتمعان أبدا. Because they are opposite and contrary to one another. Yeah? Because they are opposite and in contrary to each other and can never coincide. They can never come together, shirk and tawheed. Just like sunnah and bid'ah. Okay, so, when we look at this very beginning introduction, the muqaddamah, we can see he's mentioned a few things. Yeah, he's mentioned a few things, the intellectuals of those times, and even today's times. If you have the zaman, you can see intellectuals of all sorts, quote unquote, somewhat academic Muslims, rejecting clear-cut, explicit, sound text. Yeah, these are the so-called intellectuals. As you find, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, he speaks about these people. Yeah. فلذلك الله سبحانه بين هذا الأصل في كتابه. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made evident, clear, this very foundation, orientation in his book. في جميع القرآن فلا تكاد تخلو سورة من ذكر التوحيد وذكر الشرك. So for this reason, Allah clarified this fundamental principle throughout the entire Quran. Hence, almost every chapter has a mention of Tawheed and Shirk. وَالنَّاسِ يَقْرَؤُونَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ وَيُرَدِّدُونَهُ. And the people are reading this Quran over and over again. وَلَكِنْ قَلَّ مَنْ يَتَنَبَّهْ لِهَذَا الْبَيَانِ. But small in number are those that actually take heed from the clarification in this Quran. ولذلك تجد كثيرا من الناس يقرؤون القرآن ويقعون في شرك. That's why you find many people reading the Quran, but yet themselves they fall into shirk. يخلون بالتوحيد مع أن هذا الأمر واضح في كتاب الله وفي سنة الرسول الله لأنهم يمشون على العوائد وما وجدوا عليه آباؤهم ومشايخهم. So basically, you find many people read the Quran yet fall into shirk and violate Tawheed, despite the fact that the issue is clear in the Book of Allah and in the prophetic narrations. This is because they proceed according to traditions and what they find their forefathers and their scholars upon. So when it comes to, the Quran and Sunnah, yes, this is our, source of knowledge for all affairs. Yeah, religious affairs. And I brought together some narrations in regard to those intellectuals that effectively think by way of their academic qualifications and whatnot, they can therefore just reject sound knowledge that comes from our Islamic sources. So it's a statement from Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, may Allah have mercy upon him. فقال ابن تيمية رحمه الله قد يكون الرجل, it could be that a man, من أذكياء الناس وأحدهم نظرا, he's from the sharpest and most intelligent people in perception. ويعميه لا عن أظهر الأشياء, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala diverts him from the most apparent of things. Yeah, did he catch that? ويعميه لا عن أظهر الأشياء. Yeah? So he may be the sharpest and most intelligent from the people, but Allah blinds him from the most obvious of matters. Yeah, Allah blinds him from the most obvious of matters. وقد يكون الرجل من أبلد الناس وأضعفهم نظرا. And there could be a man that happens to be from the most slow and unintelligent from the people and weak in understanding and perception. ولكن ويهديه الله, Allah guides him لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنه. So Allah guides him to the truth about that which the people differ. فلا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله فمن اتكل عن نظره واستدلاله وعقله ومعرفته خذل. So whosoever relies upon his intelligence, العقل or nazar, his perception, his reason and understanding will be forsaken. Meaning if he thinks that his understanding and perception of the text is better than those who preceded us, who Allah and the Messenger has told us are better than us in, then he will be forsaken. Yeah? And then a statement by Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, لعن الله الذكاء بلا إيمان. لعن الله الذكاء بلا إيمان ورضي الله البلادة مع التقوى. Well, what does that mean? He said, may Allah's curse be upon the one who has intelligence but no iman, no faith. وَرَضِيَ اللَّهُ الْبَلَادَةَ مَعَ التَّقْوَى. And may Allah be pleased with the one who, is slightly slow but has the presence of piety. Has the presence of piety. So may Allah's curse, meaning the intelligence. So may Allah's curse be upon intelligence that lacks faith. And may Allah be pleased with the slowness of this very person with the presence of piety. So we're going to go back into the text a little later, inshallah. نعم, okay. فالأصل عندهم ما وجدوا عليه آباءهم ومشايخهم. So the very foundation these people are working with, those at-ta'assub, is that which they find their forefathers upon. وأهل بلدهم, and their people. ويفكرون في يوم من الأيام يتأملوا ويتدبروا القرآن. So they don't consider at any point in time to ponder and contemplate over the Quran and compare it to what the people are practicing. ويعرض عليه ما عليه الناس هل هو الصحيح أو غير الصحيح بل أخذهم التقليد الأعمى لآبائهم وأجدادهم. So he goes on to say, do they not ask themselves about what they see, i.e. what they see being practices i.e. what they see being practiced. Apologies. Is it incorrect or correct? Instead, they are led astray by blind following their forefathers and those that came before them. وَاعْتَبْرُ أَنَّ الْقُرْآنَ إِنَّمَا يُقْرَأ لِلْبَرَكَةِ. And they consider the Qur'an that is something just read for barakah, blessings. وَحُصُولِ الْأَجْرِ بِالتِّلَاوَةِ. And ascertaining reward by way of its tilawa, its recitation. وليس المقصود أنه يقرأ للتدبر والعمل به بما فيه. وليس المقصود أنه يقرأ للتدبر والعمل بما فيه. And they don't look at it, from the angle of contemplating over it and acting upon what it comprises. قل من الناس أن يقرأ القرآن لهذا الغرض. So, very few from the people read the Quran for this very goal. وإنما يقرؤون للتبرك. So verily, they're reading the Quran للتبرك, to seek blessings. به أو التلذذ بالصوت القارئ, or effectively to, enjoy listening to the recitation of the reciter. وترنم به أو لقراءة على المرضى للعلاج, or to chant it, or to read it upon the sick for healing. أما أن يقرأ للعمل به والتدبر. As for the Quran being read and acted upon it and contemplating over its meanings, والصدور عما فيه وعرض ما عليه الناس على هذا القرآن فهذا لا يوجد إلا في قليل من الناس. So likewise, in comparing it to what i.e. these people practice, then this is not found except among a few people. لا نقول أنه معدوم. So we don't say this does not exist. There are people obviously that do read the Quran and do ponder over its meanings. لكنه في أقل القليل. It's a small amount. ولذلك تجد القرآن في واد وأعمال بعض الناس في واد آخر لا يفكرون في التغيير أبدا. So you find that the Quran is in one valley and the actions of some people somewhere else. And they never consider changing. And that's why, subhanAllah, when I was listening to a tafsir lesson, I think I mentioned this in my Fatiha lessons, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book, احشروا الذين ظلموا وأزواجهم, gather together those that oppress, وأزواجهم. So those that know a bit of Arabic, what does azwaj mean? Translates as families, wives. So if you take it literally, it does kind of mean that. And that is actually one qawl. But Ibn Kathir, he said it doesn't mean that. Azwaj, in this particular context of the ayah, actually means liman salaka ala tariq al-jaw, whosoever traversed upon the path of injustice. So احشروا الذين ظلموا, gather together, the angels will say on that day, those that oppressed. So if you take the translation literally, it would seem as if Allah is saying gather together those that oppressed and their wives or families. Azwaj here is in relation to what? Anyone that oppressed like them. So this goes to show the very reason as to why he is drawing attention to contemplation of the ayat. It's not always the literal, how do I say it, surface level understanding, it's the actual meaning behind it. Yeah? Okay, Bismillah. ولو حاول مجدد أو داع إلى الله أن يغيره ما هم عليه. So if a da'i or a reviver of the deen comes along and tries to change, meaning tries to change what the people are upon, لقاموا في وجهه واتهموه بالضلال. The people arise in his face and accuse him of misguidance, ضلال. واتهموه بالخروج على الدين, and they accuse him of exiting from the religion, effectively excommunication. وأنه أتى بجديد جديد. وأنه أتى بدين جديد وأنه and that he's come with a new religion. كما حصل لهذا الشيخ نفسه لما حاول رحمه الله أن يرد الناس إلى القرآن. And just how Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab similarly went through when he tried to return the people to the Quran. وَمَا دَلَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآن, and that which the Quran is indicative of. Yeah? And that which the Quran is indicative of. وَيُغَيْرُ مَا هُمَ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْعَادَاتِ وَالتَّقَالِيدِ الْبَاطِلَةِ, in order to obviously change that they were upon from, customs and traditions which effectively oppose the Quran and Sunnah, which is batil, falsehood. ثاروا في وجهه وبدعوه وفسقوه. They flamed up in his face and declared him to be a person of heresy. وفسقوه, and also declared him to be a fasiq, rebellious, outright sinner. بل كفروه واتهموه باتهامات, and verily they, excommunicated him and accused him of accusations which are not effectively correct. لكن في الحقيقة, and in reality, هذا لا يضر وليس بغريب. However, in reality, this is of no consequence, nor is it strange. فإن الأنبياء قيل فيهم ما هو أشد. For verily, the Anbiya, the prophets, about them was said many worse things. يعني أشد من ذلك, worse than that. لما أرادوا أن يغيروا ما عليه الأمم من عبادة غير الله قيل في حق الأنبياء ما قيل فكيف بالدعاة والعلماء. So, as you all know, the prophets were accused of worse when they intended to change what their communities and people were upon. And likewise, which the nations practiced, i.e. worshipping others instead of Allah alone. Things were said about the prophets which weren't true. So how about the callers to Allah and scholars? فلا غرابة في هذا. There's nothing strange in this. وهذا لا ينقص في أجر العالم. في أجر العالم والداعية. So this is something which should reduce the reward of the scholar or the caller to truth. بل هذا يزيد في حسناته عند الله سبحانه وتعالى. Verily this shall, inshallah, increase him in rewards with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وإنما يرجع بالنقص على ما قاله ومن تفوه به وكتبه فإن هذا يرجع عليه. So the fault only returns back to whoever speaks and writes against him. أما العلماء المخلصون والدعاة إلى الله, so as for the scholars, the sincere scholars, and the true callers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فلا يضرهم ما قيل فيهم, they're not affected the slightest by what is said about them. بل يزيد في درجاتهم وحسناتهم ولهم قدوة بالأنبياء وما قيل في حقهم وما اتهموا به. So, in fact, it raises them in rank and increases, inshallah, their good deeds. And they have the example of the prophets and what was said about them and what they were accused of. والله تعالى يقول لنبيه ما يقال لك إلا ما قيل للرسل من قبلك إن ربك لذو مغفرة وذو عقاب أليم. Allah said to his prophet, nothing is said to you, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Nothing is said to you, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, except that it was said to the messengers before you. Except that it was said to the messengers before you. Verily your Lord promises and possesses forgiveness and a painful punishment. فالشيخ رحمه الله في هذه الكلمات يبين شيئا من هذا الأمر العجيب. So the Shaykh is clarifying something from this very, very strange affair. أن الناس يقرؤون القرآن, that the people, they are reading the Quran. ويكثرون في قراءته. ويكثرون في قراءته. And they are doing this abundantly, i.e. this recitation. And they are completing it. ويحفظونه ويرتلونه ويركزون اهتمامهم بالألفاظ القرآن وتجويده وأحكام المد والأحكام الإدغام والغنة والإقلاب والإظهار والإخفاء. So they memorize it and recite it beautifully. And they focus their concern on the wordings of the Quran and its pronunciations, and the rulings of elongations, contractions from the nasal aspects, and how letters change and become apparent or concealed. ويعتنون بهذا عناية فائقة. And they place a remarkable amount of attention on this. وهذا شيء طيب ولكن, but this is something good, but it is not the aim, nor the most important issue. المقصود تدبر المعاني. The very point, the very goal is to ponder over its meanings. والتفقه في كتاب الله عز وجل, and gaining comprehension and understanding in the book of Allah. وأرض أعمالنا وأعمال الناس على كتاب الله, هل هي موافقة لكتاب الله أو مخالفة? So, to also compare one's actions, are our actions in agreement with the Quran or disagreement? هذا هو المطلوب. This is what's required. أن نصحح أوضاعنا وأن ننبه على أخطاء الناس, لا بقصد التشهير ولا قصد النيل من الناس, بل بقصد الإصلاح والنصيحة. So that we rectify ourselves. This is what's required, that we rectify ourselves, our situation, and point out the mistakes of the people, not in an attempt to obviously defame them and get the better of them. No. But for the sole purpose of rectification and sincere advice. Obviously, when we see something mukhalafa, in contradiction to what we know the sunnah to be, no doubt, ikhwan, with hikmah, Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di mentions, what is hikmah? Wisdom. فعل ما ينبغي كما ينبغي في الوقت الذي ينبغي. What does that mean? How do we correct someone? It means effectively wisdom, i.e. when correcting someone, means to do what is right. فعل ما ينبغي, فعل ما ينبغي, to do what ought to be done. كما ينبغي, as it should be done. في الوقت الذي ينبغي, in the correct time it should be done. This is hikmah, this is wisdom. Not to obviously, do it outside in front of people. If you could take a man to the side and advise him, this is better. Okay, so that is the muqaddamah. Now we're going to break down some of the points, inshallah, if time allows, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So the genealogy of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, this is a very interesting part. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. So this is not found in the book. This is kharij al-kitab. This is outside of the book. So he's from the ulama al-Najd. هو شيخ الإسلام ومصباح الظلام ومفيد الأنام, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab ibn Sulaiman ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Rashid. He is the Sheikh of Islam, the lamp for darkness, the beneficiary to the creation. I'm going to read to you his lineage now. Ibn Muhammad, Ibn Mushrif, Ibn Umar, Ibn Mi'dad, Ibn Rais, Ibn Zakhir, Ibn Muhammad, Ibn Alawi, Ibn Wahib, Ibn Qasim, Ibn Musa, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Uqbah, Ibn Sani', Ibn Nahshal, Ibn Shaddad, Ibn Zuhair, Ibn Shihab, Ibn Rabi'a, Ibn Abi Saud, Ibn Malik, Ibn Hanzala, Ibn Malik, Ibn Zayd Manat, Ibn Tamim, Ibn Murr, Ibn Adda, Ibn Tabikhah, Ibn Ilyas, Ibn Mudar, Ibn Nazar, Ibn Mu'id, Ibn Adnan. And it is to this point in his genealogy, that the trustworthy reporters have ended it. وَإِلَى هُنَا يَقِفُ ثِقَاتِ الرُّوَاةِ. So they've stopped his genealogy there. And this is the most interesting part. I don't know if anyone knew this. Raise your hands if you knew this after I mention it, inshallah. He's from Banu Tamim. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is from Banu Tamim, which is a tribe. A tribe in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, praised. Where he mentioned, ما زلت أحب بني تميم منذ 3 سمعت من رسول الله يقول. I've never ceased to love Bani Tamim since I heard three matters from the Messenger of Allah, i.e. about them. Yeah? I've never ceased to love Bani Tamim since I heard three matters from the Messenger of Allah about them. ما زلت أحب بني تميم منذ 3 سمعت من رسول الله يقول هم أشد الناس يعني هم أشد أمتي على الدجال. Yeah? هم أشد أمتي على الدجال. They are the most severe against the Antichrist, the Dajjal. Yeah? So, they are the most severe from my nation against the Dajjal, the Antichrist. قال Abu Hurairah said, وَجَاءَتْ صَدَقَاتُهُمْ, and their charity came. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, هذه صدقات قومنا, هذه صدقات قومنا. This is the charity of our people. This is the charity of our people. So we can see here clearly the ta'liq in commentary of this. أضاف النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام لنفسه تشريفا. He ascribed them, i.e. Banu Tamim, to himself. Tashrifan, out of honor. Then what did he go on to say? وَكَانَ السَّبِيَّ مِنْهُمْ فَقَالَ, and there was a female captive amongst them, i.e. a captive from war. أعتقيها فإنها من ولد إسماعيل. أعتقيها فإنها من ولد إسماعيل. So there was a female captive of war with Aisha radiallahu anha. So the Messenger of Allah said, free her, for verily she is from the offspring of Ismail. Yeah? And this narration is not some weird narration, it's found in Bukhari. Yeah? So Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, his tribe, which he's from, which is Banu Tamim, Prophet ﷺ praised them. Yeah? And they are the most severest people against the Dajjal. What does that mean? What does that mean? What's understood here, يعني أشد أمة على الدجال يدل على سجاءتهم وثبات إيمانهم في آخر الزمان, meaning they are the most brave and they will stand strong in Iman against the Dajjal from these people, Banu Tamim. Yeah? They were from the most noble tribes in Jahiliyyah. Yeah? And the Prophet ﷺ, effectively, as you can clearly see, he's praising them. أشد الأمة على الدجال. أشد الناس على الدجال. نعم. Okay. All right, so when he mentions على قدرة الملك الغلاب, yeah? Al-Malik, is that from the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that from the names? Yes. Al-Ghallab? It's not. And what did we say previously in our Fatiha lessons? We said that to say something, i.e. is a name of Allah, you have to have something textual from the Quran and Sunnah. But we don't have anything here. So why has he said Al-Ghallab? Well done. So it's similar to effectively saying Ghadib. Allah does get angry. But we don't say literally Allah is Al-Ghadib. We can say it as a description. But we don't ascribe and say this is his name, rather as a description, if that makes any sense. Yeah? على قدرة الملك الغلاب. Yeah? The ever triumphant king. So, Al-Malik min Asma'illah. Yeah? Al-Malik, yeah, the king, the owner, is from his names. And what do we say about every name? There is a attribute. But not for every attribute there is a name. Jazakumullah khair. So as you know, the asma of Allah, the names of Allah are restricted, yeah, to a text. And so too are the sifat, but the sifat are more vast, yeah. So it's permissible to derive a sifa from the action, even though we don't claim it is a name. That's the first thing. For example, we can say mustawan ala arsh. We can say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? One who is above his throne. We don't say Allah is al-mustawi, for example, but we say mustawan ala arsh. Yeah? Ar-Rahman ala arsh istawa. Yeah? But where does Al-Ghallab come from? Now this is the question. Where does Al-Ghallab come from? Sorry. It is derived from something. It's derived from Al-Aziz, the mighty. So it's derived from Al-Aziz, the mighty. And obviously, Al-Aziz alludes to what? Izzah. If Allah is Al-Aziz, the mighty, this shows Izzah, which is might. Yeah? And what this Al-Ghallab is indicative of is also Al-Qahr, which means one who overcomes, subdues, dominates. Yeah? Indu Ghalaba. Yeah? And he uses it from this angle, effectively. Yeah? So if anyone was wondering, why does it say Al-Ghallab? Ala Qudrat al-Malik al-Ghallab, it comes from that angle. Yeah? Okay. Okay, so he goes on to say, explain clearly for the common people, sittatu usul bayyanahu Allah. 6 fundamental principles Allah has clarified. Bayanan wadihan lil awam. Clearly and evidently for the awam. What does awam mean? General commoners. So al-ami هو الذي ليس عنده بغالب الأحكام الشرعية ويسمى مقلد. So the ami is a muqallid effectively. He's a follower. Yeah? This is a ami, he follows يعني what his sheikh tells him. Yeah? This is what it means. And it comes from the word ama. Yeah? هو ضد الخاصة. وقيل أصله من العمى هو ضد البصر. So its linguistic orientation is from al-ama, which means to somewhat be blind and not see. وهو ضد البصر is the opposite of one who sees. Okay, now moving on to the text. Yeah, if I'm moving too fast, let me know. He goes on to say, أكبر الآيات الدالة. أكبر الآيات الدالة. So we're actually explaining what he means from the introduction now. أكبر الآيات الدالة. From his greatest signs. Yeah? أكبر الآيات الدالة. From his greatest signs. What does this mean now? So, a lot of us hear, for example, the word mu'jiza. Has anyone heard this word mu'jiza before? Yeah? Mu'jiza. But mu'jiza is not in the Quran, nor is it in the Sunnah. Mu'jiza is not in the Quran, nor is it in the Sunnah. So we don't say it's haram to use this word mu'jiza, because the linguistic meaning of mu'jiza means to render one incapable. This is what it means, to render one incapable. We don't say it's haram to use, but rather Ahlul Sunnah use ayat and barahin. Ayat, signs, and barahin, evidences. This is the language of the Quran. Therefore, this should be the language of Ahlul Sunnah. Yeah? And his ayat are maqru'ah. His ayat are maqru'ah, meaning recited and heard. Maqru'ah, recited and heard. For example, he has ayat within the makhluqat, which is night and day, the alternation of the night and day. Funny enough, the first people to use the word mu'jiza were who? Who knows? Mu'tazila. Wasn't that what Ahlul Sunnah came with? Yeah? Not to say it's wrong. Not to say it's wrong. But the first people to come with it were Mu'tazila. Yeah? So, what do Ahlul Sunnah use? The language of the, which is ayat wa barahin, signs and evidences, not philosophy. Yeah? Because mu'jiza is ambiguous. So we don't say it's completely wrong, but it has ambiguity. It's ghamid shwaya. Yeah? So Ahlul Sunnah stick to the language of the Quran. Yeah? Okay. And now we're going to move on to what Ibn Taymiyyah has mentioned about dhaka. Yeah? Dhaka means intelligence, shrewdness. Shrewdness means someone who's sharp in perception. Yeah? And he mentions it. Yeah? In the very beginning, about dhaka, which is intelligence. And what's the very reason why he mentions this? بعد هذا غلط فيها كثير من أذكياء العالم والعقلاء بني آدم إلا أقل القليل. So a crucial thing we need to understand here. Yeah, a crucial thing to understand. There is no connection between dhaka and iman. There's no connection between intelligence and faith. Don't think because so-and-so is intelligent, shrewd, sharp, therefore he has faith. This isn't always the case. Yeah? There's no connection between dhaka and iman. Rather, the connection is between zakat and iman, purification and faith. This is the connection. So intelligence and shrewdness and having a high IQ doesn't mean so-and-so will believe. As you all know, yeah, you find the most intelligent of people amongst this earth finding all sorts of new technology from here to there, but they still don't believe in Allah. Yeah, they still don't believe in Allah. Just because he's intelligent and shrewd doesn't mean that Allah guides him. This isn't the case. Rather, those who are pure, Allah guides, meaning pure heart. Yeah? And you can see clearly from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He allows them to increase in technology and agriculture and engineering. He allows this. Even though they choose to disbelieve in Him. Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His rahmah reaches even those that disbelieve in Him and curse, He still allows them to eat, sleep, drink, have progeny, tribes, grow in number. This is from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's no connection between intelligence and iman. Rather, the connection is with purification, zakah, and iman. Okay. And then he goes on to mention Ibn Taymiyyah. This is the good part. So he, the kafir, has been granted dhaka, intelligence, or dhukah. The kafir has been granted this. Yeah? But not purity. The purity, inshallah, is for the Muslim. Yeah? As Allah says in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Yeah? He who is successful has purified it. Zakkaha, going back to the nafs, the soul. Yeah? He who purifies it, i.e. the nafs, is successful. Yeah? So Ibn Taymiyyah, he mentions a very important thing. I don't know why I wrote this actually, but it's somewhat got this part here. So he goes, فَلَيْسَ الْفَضْلُ بِكَثْرَةِ الْإِجْتِهَادِ فَلَيْسَ الْفَضْلُ بِكَثْرَةِ الْإِجْتِهَادِ وَلَكِنْ بِالْهُدَى وَالسَّدَادِ وَلَكِنْ بِالْهُدَى وَالسَّدَادِ. So virtue is not attained by solely exerting a lot of effort. Rather, it's attained through correct guidance. Yeah? لَيْسَ الْفَضْلُ بِكَثْرَةِ الْإِجْتِهَادِ وَلَكِنْ بِالْهُدَى وَالسَّدَادِ. Virtue is not attained by solely exerting a lot of effort. Rather, it is attained through correct understanding. So Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to say something else now. And he's talking about those that somewhat think they're quote-unquote, academic, and those who have... He's actually talking about the falsafa, the people of philosophy, and those that think that they've, gone so high in intellectual, understanding and virtue, that effectively they've fallen so astray. So he goes, أُوتُوا ذُكَاءً وَلَمْ يُؤْتُوا زَكَاءً. أُوتُوا ذُكَاءً وَلَمْ يُؤْتُوا زَكَاءً. What does that mean? They were given intelligence. They were given intelligence, i.e. the people of rhetoric and philosophy, but not given purity. They were given intelligence, but not given purity. وَأُعْتُوا فُهُومًا وَمَا أُعْتُوا عُلُومًا. وَأُعْتُوا فُهُومًا وَمَا أُعْتُوا عُلُومًا. And they were given understandings of many affairs. They were given understandings of many affairs, but were actually not given the true science of knowledge, i.e. of this religion. وَأُعْتُوا سَمْعًا وَأَبَصَارًا وَأَفْئِدَةً. And they were given the faculties of hearing, seeing, and understanding. Yeah, the faculties of hearing, seeing, and understanding. And then he moves on to the ayah in Surah Al-Ahqaf. فَمَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُمْ سَمْعُهُمْ وَلَا أَبْصَارُهُمْ وَلَا أَفْئِدَتُهُم مِّن شَيْءٍ. Yeah, فَمَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُمْ سَمْعُهُمْ وَلَا أَبْصَارُهُم وَلَا أَفْئِدَتُهُم مِّن شَيْءٍ. But their hearing and vision and hearts availed them not from anything, i.e. the punishment. إِذْ كَانُوا يَجْحَدُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَحَاقَ بِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. So when they were continually rejecting the signs of Allah, as we just mentioned, when they continued in rejecting the signs of Allah, they were enveloped by what they used to ridicule. Yeah, Allah enveloped them in what they used to ridicule. So, shrewdness and intelligence has no connection. It's not binding. Because of this, therefore, he's guided. Yeah? Rather, the connection is with what? Zakah. Yeah, zakah, which means purification and iman. And I hope that was clear, inshallah. And the last point, which is tawheed, and we mentioned monotheism. We mentioned monotheism, which is tawheed, ifradullah ta'ala bil ibadah, singling out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship. So Allah's hadith for today is, the Prophet, peace be upon him, has mentioned, Ana awla an-nas bi ibn Maryam. Ana awla an-nas bi Maryam. i.e. bi ibn Maryam. والأنبياء أولاد والأنبياء أولاد علات أمهاتهم شتى ودينهم واحد. So I am the nearest of all people to Isa alayhi salam, the son of Mary. The prophets are paternal brothers, Allat. Their mothers are different, but their religion is one. And then other hadith is أنا أولى الناس بعيسى ابن مريم في الدنيا والآخرة. So both in this world and in the hereafter, I am the nearest of all people to Isa alayhi salam, the son of Mary. وَالْأَنْبِيَاءُ إِخْوَةٌ لِعَلَّاتٍ. And the prophets are paternal brothers. The prophets are paternal brothers. لِعَلَّاتٍ. أُمَّهَاتُهُمْ شَتَّى وَدِينُهُمْ وَاحِدٌ. Their mothers differ, but their religion is one. And the point in this very narration is that all of the Anbiya came with worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, i'tiqad. But the shara'i, meaning the methodology that they were given, did differ. And that's similar to the text given. So Allat in the Arabic language means those siblings who have the same father. Those siblings who have the same father, but their mother is different, i.e. the dad practiced polygyny. It's not polygamy, by the way, it's polygyny. Polygyny is the act of the man having multiple wives. Polygamy actually means when the man and woman both practice having multiple spouses. Does that make sense, yeah? So a lot of people say polygamy, it's not, it's polygyny. Yeah? So, Allat means brothers or sisters who have the same father but different mothers. And the connection, the sharh, the ta'liq, the commentary in regards to this is that the shara'i that all the Anbiya were sent with slightly differed, but the very asl they came with is the same. Yeah? As Allah said in the Quran, لِكُلِّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. لِكُلِّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. Yeah? To each of you we have prescribed a law and a method. لِكُلِّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. To each of you we have prescribed a law and a method. So you may find from the Sharia of Musa, the legislation of Musa alayhi salam, things that differed from today's Sharia, but we don't follow that. So don't pick up a Bible and say we're going to follow that. We follow the Quran. Or likewise the Injil or any other scripture you see or you find. We follow the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that which Prophet Muhammad has illustrated to us. Jazakumullah khair. And I'm going to end it there. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullah khair. Wa sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is it still running?
Yeah.
All right. Jazakumullah khair. Before everyone goes, قبل الانصراف. I got you. Jazakumullah khair. A quick reminder for those that, inshallah, that attended, barakallahu feekum. But in particular to the durus that we take, inshallah, Usul al-Sitta from today, these durus do require some level of not just contemplation, but writing. It's important that, because these notes are not from my own personal gatherings that I've conjured together. They're actually from Abu Iyad, Hafidullah Ta'ala. Yeah? So in order to fathom things correctly, it's important to write down. Now, you may not be able to write everything. You may not be able to write everything, which I understand. Yeah? It's bit by bit, shay'un for shay, bit by bit. But it's important in order for this knowledge to embed itself into your hearts that you do write something. So as Ibn Abi Kathir said from the Salaf, لا ينال العلم براحة الجسم. Knowledge does not come about from the relaxation of the body. It does take some juhud. It does take you, to some extent, to strive. Yeah? It's important. And don't worry about the effective, capacity of what you're doing or how much you're doing. Coming here and ascertaining one benefit or two benefits is better than staying at home. Just remember that. So don't look at the individual to your left or to your right, rather look at your own self. Yeah? And when you do something to the best of your ability. As a hadith goes, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ إِذَا عَمَلَ أَحَدُهُمْ عَمَلًا أَنْ يُتْقِنَهُ. Verily Allah loves when one of you does an action, an act of ibadah, that he does it with itqan, precision. He does it to the best of his ability. So, especially, يعني على وجه التحديد, especially when it comes to this particular affair of learning, especially books like this, which in the future will help you all. Though you may not see it now, if you embed it into your hearts and you go over it and rehearse it and over again, it will be, inshallah, as a weapon, i.e. to defend your religion. Yeah, I know I said this before Corona, yeah? Now, alhamdulillah, I'm not a conspiracist, by the way, yeah? I said this before Corona. He can testify, yeah? That, there may come a time when we might have to, go back into our houses. You can't trust these people, Something may happen, war. You never know. You may not have the opportunity to study. So take this very opportunity while we still can to do what we can in ascertaining knowledge. What if someone shuts down the internet? What's going to happen? You're going to have to build a library. If you haven't got a library, you better start building. Yeah? So this is the point. Study while you still can. Because once it's gone, and we don't know how long it'll be gone for, inshallah it doesn't go, you won't have much at hand unless you've got a library. This is why we always advise the brothers, to attend the lessons, not just my lessons, wherever you are, in East London, South London, North London, to attend the Salafi Maraqas. Yeah? To do what you can, because this knowledge, effectively will defend you. It will defend you when you will need it most. Yeah? As Salafis, people of Sunnah, it's more incumbent upon us to be about knowledge. As you all know, we've been attacked from all different angles, from all different characters and all different, enemies, from here to there to so-called intellectuals. You have to at least be armed, meaning with knowledge, not the arm like the Khawarij think. Yeah? That's not even armed, to be honest. But yeah, we have to be mentally armed by way of istihdar, meaning gathering together evidences against batil, proofs, ayat and barahin, evidences and, the signs of Allah. So yeah, this is just a quick reminder, nasiha, li wa lakum, for myself and also for the brothers. And jazakumullah khair for attending. Wa sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The relevance is a very good point that you mentioned. Why did I mention it? Because a lot of people, when they come to prove the existence of Allah, or effectively the qualification or validating the nubu'at, they use the word mu'jiza. Now, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. Rather, the point being is we know where this word came from. It came from the Mu'tazila. So don't be saying mu'jiza as if it's in the Quran and the Sunnah. Rather, it came from the Mu'tazila. We don't say it's completely wrong, and it's wrong to use. We don't say this. Rather, we say the words and the language in the Quran is better. It's more clear and precise. Yeah? It's clear and precise. Ayat, barahin, evidences. This is the very point I was trying to get to. Jazakumullah khair, yeah? Assalamu alaikum.